Do you ever get that feeling, like you're working really hard, but the goalposts keep moving and maybe the ladder you're climbing,
Hmm.
well, it feels like it's leaning against the wrong wall entirely.
Oh, absolutely. That sense that the economic game just isn't playing out the way it used to, especially for younger generations, maybe. It's um, it's a very common sentiment.
Right. And while it's easy to just say, oh, it's greed or politics, today we want to go a bit deeper.
Yeah, we're diving into an article by Daniel Priestley called The Truth About Why the Economy is Broken.
And our goal here, our mission, if you like, isn't just to rehash the usual complaints. We really want to understand the structural and technological shifts Priestley talks about. Why does it feel broken?
Exactly. And Priestley comes at this as an entrepreneur, someone who's actually built businesses. So he has let's say, a grounded perspective on these big shifts.
Okay, so let's jump right in. One of the first things he uses is this really vivid analogy, the two-speed economy. Imagine a race.
Okay.
50 runners, all lined up, presumably ready to put in the effort, right?
Right. Starts off seeming like a level playing field. Effort equals reward kind of thing.
But then suddenly, some runners get bicycles, and a few even get cars.
Ah, okay. I see where this is going.
Yeah, and the point isn't that the runners left on foot suddenly stopped trying. It's that the others just got this massive advantage.
It's about the tools.
Hmm.
Priestley puts it really bluntly. Technology equals vehicle. Basically, if you leverage it, you surge ahead. The others, left behind, even if they're working just as hard.
That equation, yeah, that hits home. It makes you think about how things maybe felt different, say, back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Back then, being average often felt more stable, didn't it? You could sort of expect a certain standard of living.
Yeah, the classic bell curve idea, a big middle, lots of people clustered around a similar kind of stability.
But Priestley argues that's just not the shape of the economy anymore. He says the middle class is, quote, evaporating.
Evaporating, wow. So instead of a bell curve, it's more.
Bifurcated, that's the term he uses, like two distinct peaks with not much in between. You've got those doing really well, often boosted by technology, and then others struggling.
And technology is the key driver here.
He sees it as a major engine of this divide. It rewards those who can use it effectively, creating this massive leverage we talked about.
You see it everywhere, don't you? Like YouTube creators reaching millions, coders with specialized skills.
Digital nomads, too, people working from anywhere, building businesses online. These are the folks effectively using the vehicles.
Compared to maybe people relying on older systems or training that hasn't quite caught up.
Exactly. And this is where Priestley brings in the education system, which is, well, it's a provocative point.
What does he say about it?
He suggests that the traditional school system, by focusing on things like, compliance and not rocking the boat, might actually hinder the skills needed now.
Skills like collaboration, disruption, taking calculated risks.
Precisely. Things that are often key in the digital economy. So if the system is still geared towards an industrial model, well, you see the mismatch.
That definitely makes sense. Which brings us back to those digital nomads you mentioned. He throws out a stat, over 18 million Americans identify that way now.
Yeah, it's a huge number. And it's symbolic, isn't it? It represents this whole new class of workers who are leveraging tech for, well, freedom and maybe wealth in a way that bypasses older structures.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Priestley makes another really interesting distinction, this time between capital and finance. Sounds a bit academic, but stick with us, it's important for his argument.
It really is. So capital, in his view, is basically wealth saved from the past. Money you've already earned and accumulated, like savings.
Got it. Money from past work, sitting there, ready to be used or invested.
And historically, he argues the economy ran mostly on that. Investments came from existing pools of capital.
Okay, so what's finance then?
Finance is different. It's money borrowed against the future. Think loans, mortgages, credit cards. It's based on an expectation of future earnings.
Right. And Priestley says there was a major shift, particularly after around 1970.
Exactly. Before that, mostly capital-driven. After that, we moved increasingly towards a finance-driven system. Everything started being forecasted and financed based on what we thought we'd earn later.
And that had consequences, obviously?
Well, initially, it created a huge boom, right? Lots more consumption, lots more perceived wealth, because we were essentially pulling future prosperity into the present, borrowing from the future, as he puts it.
But you can only borrow so much, presumably.
That's the issue. Priestley argues that eventually, the truly productive places to invest that borrowed money started drying up. So the finance system shifted more towards just funding consumption, keeping the spending going.
Which sounds less stable.
Potentially, yeah. When debt is mainly fueling spending rather than building productive capacity, you can end up with stagnation, bubbles, instability. It becomes a bit precarious.
Okay, so let's connect that back to the education point. If the system was designed for that older, capital-driven industrial age,
Then it was teaching skills for that age. Compliance, repetition, how to plug into an existing stable system, like being a cog in a big machine.
not necessarily how to be an innovator or an entrepreneur or someone who thrives in constant change.
Exactly. It wasn't designed to create disruptors or builders in the way the modern tech economy seems to demand.
And the result is, well, you have people who followed all the traditional rules, got the education they were told to get.
And they still find themselves struggling economically, which understandably leads to a lot of frustration, resentment even, a feeling of being misled.
Yeah, you can definitely see how that would happen. So faced with all this complexity, this feeling that things are broken, how does Priestley suggest we even think about it constructively?
He proposes something he calls the clinical method. He borrows it from, interestingly, the medical world of the 1700s.
Okay. How does that work?
It's a simple three-step process. First, symptom identification. What's actually going wrong? What are people experiencing? Like wage stagnation, cost of living crisis, inequality.
Step one, see the problem clearly. Makes sense.
Step two, causal exploration. Why are these symptoms happening? What are the underlying causes? This is where his ideas about technology and finance come into play, really digging into the mechanics.
Okay, diagnose the root cause. And step three,
Solution testing. Try different approaches based on your understanding of the cause, and crucially, see if they actually work. Measure the results. Adapt.
symptom, cause, treatment testing. It sounds logical.
It is, but here's the rub. Priestley makes this great point. We often agree on the symptoms, but argue bitterly about the causes and treatments.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds incredibly familiar, doesn't it? Everyone sees the problems, but the arguments about why they exist and how to fix them just go round and round.
Exactly. It really captures the gridlock we often see in economic debates today. The anger is there, the frustration is real, but the path forward gets lost in disagreement about the why and how.
And that anger, that economic rage, it fuels things, right? Like the rise of certain political movements or figures.
Absolutely. Priestley observes how public figures who tap into that widespread feeling of being left behind or treated unfairly can gain enormous traction.
They connect on an emotional level.
Yeah, people feel heard, they feel like someone gets their frustration. And Priestley notes this phenomenon, he calls it a feels right, doesn't have to be right kind of thing in public discourse.
Meaning the message resonates emotionally, even if the facts or the proposed solutions don't quite hold up to scrutiny.
Precisely. When you're feeling economically anxious or angry, an explanation or a solution that feels right that validates your anger can be very appealing, regardless of its actual effectiveness.
Which leads us, I guess, to some of those really hot-button topics like massive wealth inequality and billionaires. There are calls sometimes to, basically eliminate billionaires through taxes.
Priestley addresses this. He acknowledges the anger is understandable. He even draws a parallel to history, mentioning the Engels pause during the Industrial Revolution, another period of huge technological change that initially led to massive inequality.
So history shows these kinds of disruptions can create big divides.
Yes, it's not entirely unprecedented, but Priestley's caution is about the proposed solution. He argues that just trying to tax billionaires out of existence,
Might feel satisfying.
it might feel like direct action, yes, but he argues it doesn't actually fix the underlying mechanics that are generating that inequality in the first place. The two-speed economy driven by tech and finance.
It's treating the symptom again, not the cause.
That's his point. He says, and this is a direct quote, taxing billionaires out of existence doesn't fix the underlying mechanics. It just treats a symptom with a sledgehammer. It doesn't change how the vehicles work, so to speak.
Okay, so let's try to wrap up the main takeaways from Priestley's perspective here. What's the core message?
I think the biggest thing is that technology and the shift to a finance-heavy system have fundamentally restructured everything. Our old economic maps, they might not match the territory anymore.
And the current system, as it stands, isn't really designed to serve most people well, especially if they aren't plugged into that tech leverage.
That seems to be his central argument. It works incredibly well for some, the ones with the vehicles, but leaves many others behind, feeling stuck or falling behind.
So fixing it requires more than just tweaking things around the edges. It means rethinking fundamental stuff.
Yeah, things like education, how finance operates, how we create and distribute opportunity in this new landscape. It needs systemic thinking.
And while the anger many people feel is completely valid.
It needs to be paired with a clear-eyed understanding of why things are the way they are. Critical thinking about the systems, not just lashing out at the symptoms.
Right. So as we finish up this deep dive, the big idea from Priestley is really about understanding these deep structural changes, technology finance, that have created this feeling of a broken economy.
Yeah, knowing why it feels different is maybe the first step to figuring out how to navigate it, both personally and maybe, societally.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, listening. Thinking about Priestley's two-speed economy, which lane do you feel you're primarily in right now?
And maybe, just maybe, what's one small shift you could explore, one small step towards better leveraging the tools and opportunities of this digital age, whatever that might mean for you.
Definitely some food for thought there. If this has piqued your interest, we really do recommend checking out Daniel Priestley's full article for a much deeper exploration.
Absolutely, there's a lot more detail in there.